Are you guys in the first year or second year or third year? I was just told that this is a BSc statistics crowd, but I don't know which year you are in. Kayur is saying FY, FIO, SY. It's a mix, I think. Priyanka Pawar, SY. All right. Khan is also in first year. Okay. So seems like majority of you are in your first year. I think that's great. Perfect time to start with the actuarial science, I would say. We'll be beginning in 1-2 minutes, right? Just have some patience. So which chapters do we, which core statistics chapters do we cover in FYSY in BSc statistics? Do you guys have point estimation, confidence intervals, hypothesis testing, stuff like that? Do you guys have that or not? Not yet. I'm just curious. Or maybe you are still on the joint distributions and moment generating functions. Maybe SY students can answer this. Okay, we have covered regression and correlation analysis. Fine. Computational functions. Okay. So no point estimation, no confidence intervals, no hypothesis testing till now. ठीक है, मतलब अभी तक main topics नहीं आए हैं, but fair enough. That's, I think, because you are in FY. All of that will be in SY, probably in TY. One second, we'll begin in 2 minutes.
Hi guys. Good evening, everyone. I think Dhruv has been interacting with you.
Yes, sir. You can share your screen, sir.
No, I see host disable participant screen sharing.
Okay, 1 second.
I believe you're the host. You will have to.
1 second. One
Yeah.
second.
Cool. So I'll just share the screen. Just confirm if you can see it. So I think I just got message from the college organization that that there are more people who are joining in. So we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes. I hope everyone can see the screen.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Great. So guys, before we start, we will be having a lot of interactions. We'll be trying to have as much discussions as possible. So try and participate on those so that it will be a great fun learning and interacting with you. So we'll just wait, as we have been messaged right now that there are some more people joining in. So I think we'll wait for another 5 minutes max, and then we start shooting. As it is, अब तक सबको पता चल ही गया होगा कि Dhruv is quite a person who will be with you throughout, keep on asking you questions. So please answer it. It helps us in order to understand you better and give you much better advice through the course.
How much does a college professor wait before starting his lecture? What is the waiting time in Ruia College? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 0 minutes? I'm curious. Is this a normal occurrence? You can respond in the chat box. Okay, Khushi is saying 5 minutes. Fair enough. That seems reasonable.
How much is the strength of the statistics as such batch? I mean FYSY. If any of the organizers who are a part can just let us know. I mean, what sort of a strength is what we wait for before we typically start it.
Okay, Khushi is saying 26 students in FY BA for stats. Just 26 students. So does that represent the entire first year strength? 26. Or is it for like a particular batch? Maybe Khushi can clarify that. Okay, so it's probably for that. BA would be for arts. Okay, got it. 100 plus for FI BSc. Fair enough. Yeah, that is what I was expecting. 26 sounded like a pretty low number. Okay, so Priyanka is telling us that 65 to 70 in the second year. Fair enough. So total attendance would be what? Around 200.
If all
I'm sure
get.
I'm sure we are not going to wait that long, but got it.
Cool, guys. So I think we start shooting. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining in this evening. So it'll be me and Dhruv who will be taking you across through the world of actuarial science. My name is Akash Rughani and I'm the co-founder at Finstat Academy. And Dhruv is one of our lead and favorite faculties for CM2, okay, which is one of the subjects in the actuarial domain. We are here to discuss with you the entire world that actuarial science is. We'll be first discussing upon certain applications, and then basically we'll be trying to take you through as to how can you pursue it as a career. I see some disturbance. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So let's begin the session. Let's try to make it interactive, as I told at the start. We'll try as possible to make it light interactive so that you guys also have something there. In case you have any questions, feel free to put it up on the chat box, and we'll be coming to them as and when we are off it. Just avoid unmuting yourself and speaking, because otherwise it may happen that it becomes a little chaotic. Great. So let's start. So the basic thing is, the first thing that I would be touching base upon is who's an actuary. So an actuary is someone who values, as you see here, who values the future. So I basically also come from an accounting domain. So what an accountant basically does, who tries to value or basically dig the past. So typically, as an auditor or as an accountant, we look at the past, we look at the transactions that are done. But an actuary is someone who tries to value the future. This definition is obviously given by the Society of Actuaries, which is the US body. Okay, so when I say value the future, I am trying to give a value to a uncertain future. And that is why there is such a great, let's say, the statement itself sounds very interesting to me, because you are having a future which is uncertain. You're trying to use certain techniques in order to value it or in order to quantify it. Okay, so that is what, in a nutshell, as an actuary, you will be doing across domains. Okay, so we have listed out all the domains that are here, that we feel typically an actuary works upon. I'll just quickly touch base upon each domain that is there so that we can discuss through. Let's first take upon general insurance. General insurance basically is all form of insurance apart from life. Okay, it's also called as non-life insurance. Let's take an example of motor. I hope everyone here knows what is motor insurance. That event your car or your bike meets an accident, the insurance covers that. Okay. Now, how many of here people feel that typically, and this is what the notion I have whenever I am driving, is that whenever I see a female driving, I am doubly cautious. How many feel female drivers are not good drivers? And this is no bias here. It's just that typically that I've seen whenever I have been driving, even if I have some of my friends or some of my co-workers, they typically have that notion that yaar ek ladki chala rahi hai, dhyan rakhna. How many have that notion?
Sir is just talking about a stereotype here, not being, again, as he said, biased. So I think
You
I
can
would
type it
from
up on the chat box. So
I think I
I
would
think we'll
consider
start
my
getting an
mom to
understanding
be
through it.
a definite case of that. So
या ऐसा सुना है या ऐसा लगता है, I mean.
do you guys think, just answer in a yes or no also, that would be fine. Objectively speaking, do you guys think female drivers are worse than male drivers? Objectively speaking. Yes, no answer.
And there are almost 80 people now.
People, I think, are probably shy.
No, okay, yeah. So Rachel says that he
Fair
does not
enough.
feel that. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, anyone else can start just putting. I think Dhruv put it very simply. You can simply put a yes or a no. Or you feel that gender is not at all a parameter to look at driving?
That
If
is
you
also a
feel
good question
that,
to ask.
also you can put it, yes, you don't feel gender is a parameter that you look at. So Rachel agrees with us. Gender is not a parameter. Okay. So great. So not a parameter. Great. Not all, but a lot
But a
of
lot
women
of
aren't
women are
that good. Okay.
okay.
So Krutika is like the people that we generate. Gender is not a parameter about who can drive and who cannot. Okay. So generally people feel that. Okay. So ideally this is something that needs to be substantiated by data. So unmuted themselves, please mute yourself. Great.
Rutuja can mute themselves, please.
Yeah, thank you, Rutuja. Yeah, so basically, just to first give you an answer, gender is considered as a parameter. Okay, so in some countries, so I'll take a case of US here. Oops, sorry. I'll take a case of US. So US, typically, if you are a female, your premiums are lower, around 12 to 15% lower. Okay, so this is very opposite to the stereotype that we typically have heard. Okay, which is basically that women are not good drivers in the US. At least when they did the study, they found that the accidents that happen are lesser for female population than that's for male population. And in order to give a benefit to people, they reduce the they reduce the premium for female drivers. So what did they do? They looked at an uncertain future based on the data and they predicted a value of that risk. They said that the risk of a female driver is lesser as compared to a male driver, and accordingly they come up with an answer. So there are a lot of other parameters. Obviously, gender is not the only parameter. There are other parameters that are there. There is an age of the vehicle, type of the vehicle, the capacity of the vehicle. So typically the cubic capacity. So all the car lovers, 1500cc, 2000cc, 2500, 3000cc is also are all parameters there. But this is also one of the parameters. Okay. So this is what an actuary does. He comes up with an answer to this. You know what? There was one very interesting thing happened also. Everyone here must have heard about Morrison Garages, MG. They were the first ones to bring the concept of an internet car. So basically what happens is they brought up a concept where basically a SIM card is installed in your car and your car automatically has its own internet. Now, because of this, GPS, positional tracking and everything becomes very, very easy. So now there was a risk. So typically if you go for insurance, there is a risk that they also give with respect to the things that are there in your car, basically the radio, the all the other things. I still remember when we used to drive earlier, हम लोग है ना वो रेडियो का पैनल रात को निकाल के घर पे लेके जाते थे कि कल उठ के कोई वो पैनल ना लेके जाए. Okay, so when MG came up, typically a lot of insurance companies took a call that boss, if everything is there, if at any point of your car, Parinita, if you could unmute yourself.
All the new entrants, please just unmute
Mute
yourself
yourself,
for
please.
it.
Thank you. So they decided to give a lower premium to it because it was less risky. Okay, so now, so I think on your mobile app itself, you come to know immediately about what is there in the system from the mobile itself. You can start your car and stuff. Okay. The next area that I'll be touching across is life insurance. Now, in life insurance, typically are long-term contracts that typically are there. So insurance is taken against the life or death of an individual. Now, typically the premium is realized right now. Every life insurance company gets premium in advance and claim is to be paid at a later date. Okay. So now against that entire premium cannot be considered as income because at a future date, a claim has to be paid. Death is a certain event, right? When is the question? Okay. So how much of the premium that you have received to be taken as income and how much to be set aside is what an actuary determines. I think everyone here right now, at least in India, there is a big frenzy about the largest life insurance company in India coming up with an IPO. I think everyone must have heard about LIC. Okay. You know what? Because of this, they get a lot of money. Premium comes typically in advance. The claims have to be paid at a later date. Now, because of this, they manage a lot of money. Anyone here has any vague idea of how much money that LIC has as investments? Because of the premium that comes in, they typically have to invest that money because the claim is to be paid at a later date. Any idea?
Wild guess.
Any wild guess is also fine.
How much money is LIC managing at this moment? बोलो, चलेगा? Wrong होगा चलेगा?
More than 100 crores. Okay.
Okay.
More than 1000 billion. 5 billion USD. 5 billion USD is what? 1 billion is 7,500 crores. So 45,000 crores. Okay.
All right. Seems like the answers are all pretty varied. Any more guesses?
Anyone
Okay,
more?
maybe you can tell them the answer, sir.
1 lakh crore. Okay. 25 lakh crore. Now, yeah, now I see numbers coming quite near. No, so the investment book is around 30 lakh crores. Okay. Pratham got it quite near. It's a very big book. Okay. It invests in bonds, stocks. LIC का अभी जो IPO आएगा will be the largest in India. Okay. So LIC will be valued at around 10 to 15 lakh crores. This will be the valuation of LIC. Okay, 10 to 15 lakh crores. So very recently, I mean, I think 15 March the IPO is going to be coming up. Okay, so they would be only giving away 5% of this. Okay, so 15 lakh crores ka 5%. So somewhere around 60 to 70,000 crores is what they will be raising, or what the government will be selling in the market. Okay, so isme bhi they get a lot of premium income. It's the largest life insurer in India. They get a premium income. They keep certain money aside for future claims. Okay, so that entire money is invested. Okay, that is in the form of investments that go through. Okay, so this is an example of a large public sector entity. Even the world's large, or let's say one of the largest insurance companies and one of the richest person has made money like this. I think everyone must have heard about Warren Buffett. He manages Berkshire Hathaway. It's one of the largest insurance companies in the US. They manage a lot of money, and using that money only, Warren Buffett has become one of the largest individuals. Okay, so typically insurance and investment go hand in hand. Okay, why do I say that? Is because the money that you raise has to be deployed somewhere. Okay, in the form of premium, has to be deployed somewhere in the form of investments, which is very, very important, and where actuaries play a very big game. Okay, apart from that, pensions is something which is very similar to life insurance, because pension is a benefit that is given to survival of an individual. Okay, so if a person survives a lot, you'll have to pay a lot of money. Okay, gaming is an area where also now actuaries are entering into, wherever there are statistical games that are being that are a part. Okay, there are a lot of games that are coming up. Yeah, everyone must have heard about that ad. This is not a game of chance but a game of knowledge. अच्छा, किसी ने अगर सुना नहीं ना, तो ड्रीम 11 जो है, आई थिंक एवरीवन मस्ट हैव हर्ड अबाउट ड्रीम 11 का एड आता है, पता है, उसके बाद वो बोलता है it's a game of chance. It's not a game of chance, it's a game of knowledge. It's a game of statistical outcomes. Just read that. It's a very beautiful Supreme Court judgment which talks about what is game of chance and what is a game of skill. Okay, now all these areas are where actuaries get into. If I have to abbreviate this down into a single word, it would be ideally what we call as the BFSI domain. I'll just change the color. Okay, so the domain that actuaries typically work upon is this. It's called as banking, financial services, and insurance. Wherever there is a need for certain statistical techniques, okay, or valuing the investments or valuing the future outflows is where actuaries come into play. Okay, I've given some examples. We can go on and on about each and everything, but I'll now move ahead. I've given you some examples of life general. In case at the end you want some specific case studies, you can ask questions. We'll be more than happy to discuss those specific case studies as well. अच्छा, ये क्वेश्चन था. So how many of you know an actuary personally? So when I say actuary personally, maybe interacted with them, spoken to them, had a discussion with them. कितने जन ने यहाँ पे किया है? You can just
Again,
simply tell a yes or no on the chat box. Just trying to understand, because if you are planning to pursue a career, मतलब typically कैसा होता है? Let's say मेरे को CA करना है, so I go to a chartered accountant, I ask 5-6 questions. If I want to do, let's say, statistics, I go to a BSc statistics or an MSc statistics, and I ask him questions as to what was his journey. How many of you here know an actuary personally? No. Anyone who knows them can put in a yes. No.
okay,
I don't see a
काफी
yes.
सारे no ही आ रहे हैं. Okay, not a single yes till now.
Oh yes, Aditi knows someone. Chalo,
Fair
great.
enough.
So 2 yeses. Great. So I would say a major no, and with a minor sort of a yes, let's say within your circles if you know of. Okay. So typically, इसकी वजह से डाउट आता है यार इतने कम क्यों है. So obviously there are almost what, less than 500 actually, around 500 actuaries in India. So it's very normal of you not to know one. Okay, because they are very less in terms of their numbers right now in India. Okay, but there is someone who vouches for them. Okay, so Elon Musk, okay, when he came up with a very new concept in car insurance, okay, he said that he wanted revolutionary actuaries. So all know about his invention about Tesla autonomous cars. Okay, so he came up with a very different concept. He said that I am collating the data of everything that the person is doing. If he's doing rash driving, if he's overspeeding, underspeeding, he's collecting the data of everything. Second, he already has autonomous cars, so the probability of an accident is even lesser. So he wants to give a benefit of that to the consumers, but he wants to price the risk correctly. And that is why a lot less people might be knowing Tesla also has an insurance arm, which basically prices such a risk for autonomous cars. And for its own cars, they try to bring the cost of insurance down, because the US cost of insurance is very high. They try to bring it down by using the data that they collect. Okay, so I think that's a very good testimonial to the entire profession and the application of the actuarial skill sets in various domains that are there. These are certain more factoids that we have collected. Okay, so Forbes, Education Times, CNN.com, Wall Street Journal, Careers, Jobs, have all of them have rated actuaries as one of the, let's say, one of the good professions, or one of the well-known professions, or one of the jobs to be in the future. Okay, so I have one more question before I hand it over to Dhruv. What do you think is the time horizon that typically takes for one to become an actuary?
Again, wild guess.
Yeah, anything, any number that comes to your mind? 5, 7, 7. Okay, 2 years. Okay, Atharva, that's around 15. Okay, yeah. So anyone doing 2-3 years, yeah, it's way too difficult. So it's around 8 to 10 years. Okay, and this is a broad average that I'm talking about. There may be people like, let's say, brilliant people like Dhruv who may complete it earlier, but this is just a let's say a broad average. There are people who have done it in 6-7 years, and there are people who have taken 11-12 years as well. Okay, so how does one become one? I think I've given you a brief idea as to actually karta kya hai, uska testimony kya hai, matlab basically is it a recommended profession or not. I will now hand it over to Dhruv. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, before that I take it, I have remuneration packages to be discussed. Okay, so the remuneration packages that are typically there is in line with the subjects that you clear on. Okay, ideally what we feel, or what anyone who's right now, let's say typically FY should be targeting, would be this area. Okay, so around 6 lakhs per annum, and should be trying to complete 5 to 6 actuarial exams. So typically guys, ये जो 8 से 10 साल मैंने अभी तुम लोग को बोला ना, ये 8 से 10 साल क्यों होता है? So ideally by the time you graduate, so let's say right now someone is in F5, he starts giving exams. By the time you graduate, ये number achieve हो जाता है. Let's say I'll not put it very difficult, but I'll say it's easier. Okay, so typically what I've seen is what happens is, typically by the time you graduate, you easily clear 6 to 7 papers or 5 to 6 papers. But the challenge in the program comes after that. Once you start working, along with work, let's say clearing the remaining papers is where the challenge is and where that career graph elongates. Okay, but that does not mean मैं directly आगे के papers करने जाऊं, because आगे के papers में there is a specialization that comes. So you need to go through this route. You need to complete 6 papers, around 6 papers. After that, start working, try to understand the work profile of an actuary, and then accordingly do your specialization and do the higher order papers. Okay, broadly, these are the numbers. So I think if you have got on Google or ask anyone, then they typically say an actuary gets paid very well. Yeah, there are numbers which are very large as well, but ideally that should not be the basis on which you decide a career option. Larger numbers come, but they come with lot of great effort. So typically becoming an actuary itself is a big effort. It's very evident from the numbers itself, right? If there are only 500 odd actuaries in India, so that is very evident from the numbers itself that it's very difficult to become one. Okay, now I'll hand it over to Dhruv. He'll take you across through what are the various ways you can become one, what are the subjects that you have to take, okay, and detailed about whatever is there in the examination domain. Okay, I'll stop my share, and Dhruv, you can start your screen sharing. Yeah, and at the
Yes.
end, I will be more than happy to come across and take questions with regards to the application in the domain.
All right, sir.
I've made you the host, Dhruv. I think you will be able to share now.
1 second. So I think so there are two Dhruv Guptas here because so you have made the other person the host.
Oh, okay. Oh, that other person now has to make you the host.
Acha, okay. I am only logged in through devices. 1 second. Really sorry. All right. Perfect. Okay, so I think Akash sir has explained some generics of the actual science, like he has discussed actual science on a broader, on a general level. So what I will be discussing now is actual science at a more specific level. So I'll start by explaining or discussing the institutes from which you can give the papers. So you might already know this, but there are two main institutes. There are two main institutes where you can give your actual papers from. 1 second, I'll just pick a nice color. Okay, so the first one is the IAI. The first one is the IAI. This thing, the full form here is Institute of Actuaries of India. Full form मैंने बोल तो दिया, but तुम लोग को उसको याद करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. So that is the full form. The only thing that you need to keep in mind here is that this thing is the Indian Institute. This one is the Indian Institute, whereas the other one is IFOA. So again, here the full form is Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. No need to remember that. I just said it for completeness sake. This one is the UK institute. So one is the Indian institute and one is the UK institute. You can give your papers from either one of them. So what I'll be doing now is I'll be highlighting some key differences between these two institutes. का ये दोनों अलग अलग है, and then I'll also be highlighting some important similarities between them. What are the similarities between them? Okay. So I think we'll just begin with the differences first. So one key difference is that the Indian Institute has an entrance exam. The Indian Institute has an entrance exam, something that we call ACET. So you will have to first of all clear this ACET exam, and only after that you'll be able to give your actual papers if you pick the Indian Institute. On the other hand, the UK one has no such entrance exam. There is no entrance exam over here. So I'm sure if I compare these two institutes based on this point, everybody is going to be preferring IFOA only, because not having an entrance exam is one less hurdle to clear. In the case of the UK institute, you can just directly start giving your actual papers. पहला paper दो, हुआ तो दूसरा, दूसरा तो तीसरा, and so on. Okay. At the same time, even if you do pick the Indian Institute, the ASET exam is not really that tough. So this is more like an aptitude test. So the things that you'll be studying for the ACET exam would be data interpretation, logic, English speaking skills. There will also be, of course, some math and stats, but it's not a very significant part of it. So my point being, this ASET exam is more like an aptitude test, and people don't really find that very difficult. So IAI pick करोगे तो ASET भी हो जाएगा, इतना difficult नहीं. Okay. So that's one key difference between these two institutes. The other difference is the cost structure. So of course, everybody wants to know end of the day kharcha kitna hoga if we go down this career path. How much will it cost us in terms of fees and everything? So I'll just explain that now. Well, when you register with the institute, when you register with either one of these institutes, first of all, you'll have to pay an entrance fee. First of all, you will have to pay an entrance fee, and this thing is going to be a one-time cost for you. So the entrance fee for IAI, the entrance fee for the Indian Institute is around 7,000 rupees, whereas that for IFO is around 22,000 rupees. So as you can clearly see, UK Institute is slightly more expensive. Some might say way more expensive, but yeah, it is more expensive. And I think that might not be a shock to many, because end of the day ये UK की institute थोड़ी foreign institute है, तो generally वहाँ पे थोड़ा खर्चा ज़्यादा ही होता है. If you go to their website, तुम लोग अगर IFOA के website पे जाओगे तो you will see all the costs being mentioned in pounds there. You'll be making payments in pounds, and that is why the cost is a little higher. Okay, so that's one key difference. And keep in mind, जो III का मैंने cost लिखा है, entrance fee, that includes the examination fee for ASET also. This figure includes the cost for ASET also. Cool. So that's one key point. The other cost, other than this, you will also have to pay an annual membership fee. Annual membership fee, and as the name suggests, this thing is going to be an annual thing. You have to pay it every year. So for IAI, that will turn out to about 2,000 rupees, whereas for IFOA, that will turn out to about 7,500. So again, IFOA थोड़ा महंगा है, थोड़े ज़्यादा पैसे भरने पड़ेंगे every year. Finally, these two costs are, I think, relatively minor. The major cost is the paper cost. So this is the fees that you need to pay for each paper that you give. So for III, that will set you back around, I think, 12,000 rupees. Whoops. For III, that will set you back around, 1 second, 12,000, whereas for IFOA, that is around 19,000. Now, please keep in mind, these figures are not exact. Reason being, each paper costs different. Some papers might cost a little more, some papers might cost a little less, but on an average, this is what the cost is. Okay. So clearly on all three fronts. On all three fronts, IFOA is slightly more expensive. Again, some might find it way more expensive, but it is more expensive. And but what I think is, if I think about these costs in terms of education costs in general, so they don't seem that high. What I mean is, if you look at what people tend to spend on education in general, like लोगों का लाखों में खर्चा होता है. So if I compare it to that cost, this is, well, I don't see any figures in lakhs here. It's all in thousands. So I think both institutes are fairly reasonable only as far as education costs go. Okay. So those are two key differences. There is one final difference. I'll have to write it down that next page. So one final difference is, well, the paper difficulty. That is, I think, very relevant for any student. So papers from the Indian Institute tend to be a little harder. So यहाँ के papers थोड़े hard होते हैं. I think India का education का bar थोड़ा high है. So the papers from II tend to be a little harder, and more importantly, they are a bit less predictable. These papers are less predictable. So you're never really sure what is going to be asked in an II exam. Exam में क्या आने वाला ना किसी को कुछ idea नहीं होता है. They can ask, like the papers there are very variable. जो मन में हम लोग पूछते हैं काफी variability रहती है across all papers. As a matter of fact, IA has also been known to ask stuff that is a bit outside the syllabus. Of course, they will not do that for a majority of the marks, but for 5-6 marks, they can ask stuff that is not really in the syllabus. So ऐसा भी करते हैं IA वाले. And due to all these reasons, the pass percentage is a bit lower here. Lower pass percentage. So I think it tends to be in the range of around 10 to 20% pass rate रहता है. But again, the papers here are very variable, so the pass rate can drop quite low. So I remember in one of the papers that I gave from IAI, the pass result was I think 3%. तो ऐसा भी हो जाता है IIM में कभी-कभी. Just informing you. On the other hand, IFOA is the opposite. IFOA में the opposite is true, so the papers are relatively easier. Now, emphasis on the word relative, so please don't think कि सर ने बोल दिया अरे IFOA का पेपर इजी है, यूके का पेपर इजी है, तो क्लास आएंगे, टाइम पास करेंगे और बस पास हो जाएंगे. It's not like that. In an absolute sense, papers from both India and UK are difficult. You'll have to study a lot, but in the relative sense, IFOA is thoda easy. And as a result, the pass percentage also tends to be higher here. I think around 35 to 40% is what the typical pass percentage is for a paper. Cool. So these are some key differences between the two institutes: the entrance exam, the cost structure, and also the paper difficulty. All right. So these were some important differences. Now I'll also mention some important similarities between them. कि कहाँ पर ये दोनों institutes same है. Let me just quickly switch colors. Okay, so what are some important similarities? Well, first of all is the syllabus. The curriculum. So what I mean is, it does not matter if you give your paper from either one of them, you're going to be studying the same thing. The study material, the books that you will be reading will exactly be the same for both the institutes. Of course, final exam अलग आएगा. And as I said, II का थोड़ा hard होता है, IFOA का थोड़ा easy होता है, but the material, the syllabus, the curriculum is the same. Okay, that's one similarity. And the other is that both the institutes have 2 exams. Both the institutes take 2 exam attempts in a year. There are 2 exam attempts in a year. So typically one happens somewhere in April and the other one happens somewhere around September. So for example, if you let's say register from the UK institute, you will get a chance to give your exam in April, and you will also get a chance to give an exam in September. Same for IA. 2 बार दे सकते हैं exam. Now, one thing I think many people are not really aware of is that there is an apparent restriction here, which is that in a single attempt, at most you can give 3 papers. साथ में max to max तुम लोग 3 पेपर ही दे सकते हो. So in one attempt you can give 3 papers at max. Now, if you're not really familiar with actual science level, this might seem like a very big restriction, like why I want to give 4 or maybe I want to give 5. Why am I restricted to 3? But trust me, this is not really a restriction. In my entire experience teaching, I do not know a single person who has cleared 3 papers in one attempt. I seriously don't. That's not an exaggeration. Majority of the people give 1 paper in an attempt, maybe sometimes 2. That's it. Nobody gives 3. Again, many people might not know this, but several years back, the Indian Institute actually had a prize money for anybody who cleared 3 papers in one attempt. It's not really it's not continued now, so there's no prize money now, but several years back there was. तीनों पेपर क्लियर किया ना तो तुम लोग actually पैसे मिलते हैं इंस्टीट्यूट से. So, but yeah, just a bit of trivia there. Okay. So those were some important, I guess, dissimilarities and similarities between the two institutes. Anybody has any questions here? Before I move ahead, I'll like to take any questions regarding the two institutes. So if anybody has any doubts, they can very freely ask it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one question.
Yes, Pratham.
That, like when we clear the ACET exam, so we have to pay for the annual membership, or we can give initial papers without the membership.
No, so you will have to pay for the annual membership. What Pratham is asking that if you clear the ACET, after that, do you have to pay for the annual membership? And the short answer is yes. पहले साल में भी भरना पड़ेगा, उसके बाद भी भरना पड़ेगा.
Just to clarify one thing, Pratham, the annual membership is irrespective of the exams. Exam दो या ना दो, annual membership देना ही है.
Correct.
Okay.
Irrespective of whether it's UK or India.
So the idea is that this fee is paid just to keep your membership intact. So every year you have to pay it, even if you don't appear for a paper in that year. All right. Any more questions? Feel free to ask. Chalega, if you think they are not that smart questions, it's totally fine. Pucho.
And like, can we shift from one institute to the another after giving one exam?
All right. So if you, in terms of if you can or cannot, definitely you can. If you want to do it, you can take membership from the other institute and start giving papers from the other institute. But doing that won't make a lot of sense because if you want to, let's say, become an actuary, which is clearing all your papers, you will have to clear all of them from one institute to become an actuary from that institute. So for example, I'll later tell you how many papers there are in actuarial science. तो जितने भी पेपर अगर सारे तुम लोगों ने एक इंस्टीट्यूट से क्लियर किए ना, then only you will become an actuary of that institute. So for example, if I go ahead with what you are suggesting, I might be done with, let's say, 3 papers from the Indian institute, and then I switch to the UK institute to give the remaining papers. In that case, although I would have cleared all the papers, but they would be from 2 different institutes, in which case I won't really become an actuary from either one of them. So we don't tend to do that. People pick one and they stick to that institute.
So
Yes, Pooja.
earlier Akash sir said that after you clear 5 to 6 papers, you have to start working. What do you mean by start working?
Maybe Akash sir can clarify.
Who asked? Pooja, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So Pooja, so broadly by the time you graduate, you should have a target of around 5 to 6 exams. Once you're done with that, you start working as in you take a job in the domain that you feel you want to start. You can get into life, you can get into general, you can get into finance, investments, wherever you feel you want to start, you start. Because what will happen is you will start understanding as whatever you have learned, how do they apply in those respective domains, and whether you want to specialize in a domain. So I think Dhruv will come to later on papers. So typically you will have to choose an area of specialization in the latter papers. So accordingly, after that, along with work, you will have to clear the papers.
Just to clarify, so let's say Pooja, you start giving papers while you're in college, and by the time you graduate, let's say you're done with 5 papers. So after 5 papers, you start interviewing with companies, and companies will offer you jobs with 5 papers. So they will not say that, oh shit, you have cleared only 5 and other papers are left, so we can't offer you a job. That is not how it works. People start working and they get jobs after 5 to 6 papers. So that is what Akash sir meant. You will basically start earning after you graduate.
Okay, sir.
All right. Any more questions? Okay, I don't think there are, so maybe we can move ahead. Of course, you will get more time to ask more questions later down the road also. So no problems. So right now I was discussing the two actuarial institutes, the Indian one and the UK one, IA and IFOA. Now what I'll be discussing is the actuarial papers. So just one quick question before we begin. How many papers do you think there are in actuarials? Kitne paper hai?
15.
Others can, okay, so Pooja is saying 15. Others can also answer in the chat box. Okay, so we have two answers, 13, 13, 12. Okay, Advait is saying 20. All right, so there does seem to be some variation here, ranging from 10 all the way till 20. Kya baat hai? I think we have not left any integer out. Okay. Oh, so the minimum has just been reduced to 8. Mr. Khan wants to be done with all the papers very quickly, it seems. Okay, so I'll reveal the correct answer now. The correct answer is 13, which I think only a handful of people answered. Keyur, Anjali, maybe even one more person. Okay, so yeah, the number of actual papers is 13. You need to clear 13 papers to become an actuary. And these 13 papers, Advait, don't worry, these paper nahi likhne hai. And everybody who answered more than 13, please don't worry, 13 mein ho jayega. So these 13 papers are actually divided in 4 categories. They are subdivided into 4 categories. I'll just quickly write their names, but you don't really have to remember them. A lot of terminology coming your way now. So we have core principles, core practices, specialist principles, and specialist advanced. Please excuse my lovely handwriting. So the 13 papers are divided into 4 categories. 7 belong here, 3 belong here, 2 belong here, and 1 belong here. नाम याद नहीं करना, सिर्फ दिमाग में रखो 4 category. And even in these 4 categories, today we'll be focusing on this first one. So our prime focus is going to be on this and not really on these remaining 3 categories. The reason being, ये first category को करने को ही तुम लोग को around 3 years लग जाएंगे. It will take you around 3, maybe even 4 years to get done with this first category. So ideally what happens is that students start giving papers from this first category while they are in college, which is basically the exact audience that I'm talking to right now. So तुम लोग core principles देना चालू कर दोगे, and by the time you graduate, hopefully you're done with this entire first category. So this is something that you give during graduation, whereas the remaining categories come into place after you graduate. So these are the papers that you'll be giving after graduation. And as we were just discussing, after graduation, you will not just sit and you will apply for jobs and you will get them. So you will be working here. तुम लोग काम कर रहे होगे. So these are the papers that you give while you are working. So as it is pretty obvious here, these papers come into the picture quite later in the journey. So हम लोग उनको focus नहीं करेंगे. We are going to be focusing on this first category. Okay. Now this core principles, these first 7 papers, core principles, the first 7, they're actually subdivided into 3 more categories. So again, I realize the graph is getting longer and longer and probably more complex, but don't worry, तुम लोग को ज़्यादा कुछ यहाँ पे याद नहीं करना है. Actually, you should probably remember what I'm saying now. जो ये पहले वाला ग्राफ है ये दिमाग में नहीं रहेगा चलेगा. But what I'm saying now should be in your head because these are the papers that you will be giving while you're in college. Okay. So there are 3 subcategories here. We have core mathematics. We have core statistics. And finally, we have core business. Okay. CM, CS, and CB. 2 papers in CM, 2 papers in CS, 3 papers in CB. So together they make 7 papers. All right. So let's talk about core mathematics. Now, core mathematics has CM1 and CM2. Here we have CM1 and CM2. Very similarly, core statistics has CS1 and CS2, whereas finally core business has CB1, CB2, and CB3. So tally हो रहा है number 2 plus 2 plus 3 total 7 आ रहा है. All right. So what I will do now is I'll just give you a very brief idea of what each paper is. Obviously, I can't go into the details because that will make this seminar very long. So मैं बस बहुत ऊपर से touch करने वाला हूँ. Now this CM1 deals with life insurance. So now many might think, अरे यार shit, life insurance कौन पढ़ेगा, क्या boring होगा, कोई interest ही नहीं है. So when I say life insurance, I don't mean the theory behind life insurance. What I mean is the mathematics behind it. So this CM1 paper is going to be a pretty mathematical paper and you will be dealing with quite complicated equations here. So this is the math behind life insurance, just clarifying that. Whereas when it comes to CM2, here we will be dealing with quantitative finance. So this is what is generally considered to be a very hot, a very jazzy paper. Like students look forward to it and they want to study it as soon as possible. This is also the paper that I teach. So if you, let's say, go ahead with actuarial science and if you pick FinStat as your classes, maybe I will see you in 2-3 years. So yeah, CM2 deals with quantitative finance and I teach that. So that is CM1 and CM2 for you. After that, we also have CS1 and CS2. So CS1 deals purely with statistics. This is a purely statistics paper and I think you will be in a very good position to appreciate that because तुम लोग सब लोग BSc in stats वाले लोग हो. So as I think I was discussing in the beginning of this seminar, here we have point estimation, here we have confidence intervals, here we have hypothesis testing. All of this you have not probably studied till now, but you will deal with it in second year and third year. So CS1 will be very much aligned to your strengths. And finally, we have CS2, which deals with general insurance. Again, this is the math behind general insurance and not some theory behind it. All right. So one final thing to note, one final thing to note here is that there is also a software component involved. So there is a software component involved here, which is Microsoft Excel. So जो भी तुम लोग यहाँ पे सीखोगे ना, you will also learn how to actually implement it on Excel. So when it comes to CS1, you'll be giving 2 papers. One will be a written paper and one will be an Excel-based paper. Similarly, CM2 maybe you will be giving 2 papers, a written and an Excel paper. So this is actually a very helpful thing because you actually see how concepts are applied on software, which is how you do apply them in the real world also. Very similarly, यहाँ पर भी software component involved है. Any guesses as to what that software would be? Maybe BSc people can answer. What is the software component that you think would be there for statistic papers? We have one answer. Okay, so R, Python, R. All right, so Atharva, Keyur, Lakshmi, everybody's basically on point. You'll be learning R programming. We don't really have Python, so sorry for that, Keyur. But हम लोग यहाँ पर whatever R programming सीखेंगे हम लोग यहाँ पर. And okay, so again, when it comes to CS1, you'll be giving two papers. One will be a written paper and one will be an R programming based paper. Similarly for CS2, two paper होंगे. So these software components were actually not present before 2019. They have been introduced only after 2019, and I think they are a very, very amazing addition. You actually learn how to apply all the concepts on a software. So that's, I think, brilliant. Okay, so these are the key papers, CM and CS papers. We also have the CB papers, but they tend to be a bit easier. So CB papers को clear करने में इतना difficulty नहीं होता, and people don't really give it that much attention. So I'm also going to be just specifying the names here, not any details. CB1 deals with corporate finance. CB2 deals with economics, whereas CB3 is not really a paper. It's more like a project or an assignment, like something like you do in college. So that's like a free paper for you. Okay. So ये CB papers बहुत easily रहते हैं. The main focus is on the CM and the CS papers. All right. So that is the paper structure of actuarial science. And these 7 papers are what you will be initially focusing on. Uske baad we move on to these higher level categories, but they are not relevant for you right now. So we will not be discussing that. Any questions with regards to the paper or anything above or below that? Feel free to ask any questions. Don't be shy. कोई भी सवाल है चलेगा. So maybe I will pose a question that we often get at this stage. Which paper should I give first, sir? पहले CM1 दे कि CS1 दे? कौन सा देना चाहोगे पहले? बोलो. Okay, so we have CS1 as an answer, CM1 also as an answer, but 3 out of 4 are saying CS1. All right. So, okay, Mayur is also saying CS1. Okay, so that is a very expected response from given the crowd that I'm talking to. So first of all, just a small disclaimer, there is no hard answer here, there's no correct answer. Both CM1 and CS1 are initial level papers, basic papers. So you can start with either one. There is no issue in that sense. Now, given that you guys are from a BSc statistics background, statistics would be your strength. And for you guys, it definitely makes sense to start with CS1. So you are actually a minority who generally would prefer starting with CS1. Other students tend to prefer starting with CM1 because CM1 is slightly less mathematical. CS1 tends to be slightly more mathematical. CM1 is less mathematically intensive. So many people prefer starting with CM1. But of course, that advice does not apply to you. तुम लोग सब BSc स्टार्ट वाले लोगो, तुम लोग CS1 से चालू करोगे. Okay. Great. So, okay. Again, any questions before I move ahead? How are we supposed to study for business papers? Okay. So when you register with an institute, you will basically get study material. So you will essentially get a book for each of the CB1 paper or CB2 paper. So your step 1 would be to read through that entire book. That book will also have a lot of practice questions in it, which will be solved, which you'll be solving to get a sense of if you're understanding it or not. So you'll be reading through your entire book. You'll be solving all the questions in that book. And of course, not of course, actually, if you want, you can attend classes, in which case we will teach you about the entire subject. and how to tackle it. But the key thing would be reading the book that is provided to you and solving all the questions in it. Did you understand, Nishi, what I said? I'm just looking for a yes or no so that I can move ahead. Okay, lovely. So Pooja is asking, can we give these papers in any order? So even that's a lovely question. So first of all, there is a lot of flexibility here. You won't really give them in any order, but there is a lot of flexibility. I'll just explain what I mean by that. So let me pick a color. So you will essentially be giving CM1 and CS1 first. You will be giving CM1 and CS1 first. Now in that you can pick any order. पहले CM1 फिर CS1 भी चलेगा, पहले CS1 फिर CM1 भी चलेगा. But you will be clearing these two basic papers first. Only after you are done with the CM1 and CS1, you can move on to CM2 and CS2. So only after these things can you move on to this set of papers. So this is something that you can aim to do next. And those CB papers, they are absolutely independent of the other papers. This set of papers is absolutely independent, so you can give it anytime you want. You can give it between CM1 and CS1 also. You can give it between CM2 and CS2 also, and any way you want. So here there is, let's say, no order, whatever feels more comfortable. So sometimes, just to give you an example, what a bright student might do is that if they feel CS1 is easy, they might combine it with a CB1. So they will give CS1 and CB1 together because they feel they can do two papers together. So something like that. Basic idea being CM1 CS1 पहले करना है, उसके बाद CM2 CS2 करना है. CB papers you can put anywhere you want. So people tend to combine the CB papers with some of the easier ones. Make sense, Pooja? Again, just one more point. So as I said, there is no order in CB1, CB2, CB3. So you can give CB2 before CB1 also. They are unrelated to each other. You can give CB2 first, uske baad CM1. Both are fine. All right. So that's the basic order. Good question. Okay. So now I'm just going to move on to the final thing. काफी लंबा already हो चुका है ये seminar. So I'll just very quickly move on to the final thing. And before I do that, one quick question. How many actuaries do you think there are from both the institutes? If you remember, we discussed two institutes, right? IA and IFOA. So how many people do you think have cleared papers from both the institutes? Cleared all the papers. Now, I think Akash sir mentioned the number. I'll just, I think this question does not really make sense that much now because Akash sir mentioned the number, but the number that he mentioned was for the Indian Institute. The number that Akash sir has been mentioning is for the Indian Institute. The number for the UK Institute is different. So I'm just gonna get to that. But I'm sure nobody might have thought that we have so few actuaries. So I'll just discuss that once. So the picture in front of you is the membership statistics for the UK Institute. Okay. What Akash sir has mentioned was for the Indian Institute, but what we have in front of us right now is for the UK Institute. So quite a lot of figures here. Don't worry. सब कुछ नहीं देखना है. We will be focusing on this figure. There are about 32,000 members. So almost 32,000 people have registered with the UK Institute. And out of these people, around 16,000 are student members. Around 16,000 are student members. So that means 16,000 people are actually still in the process of giving papers. 16,000 लोग अभी भी पेपर दे रहे हैं. So about 32,000 is the total membership, out of which 16,000 are still giving papers. So remaining about 16,000 are fellows. And when I say fellows, these are people who have cleared all the papers. These are basically the actuaries. So what I'm trying to get at here is that even though actuarial science is gaining popularity, even though actuarial science has become a little bit more famous in the recent years, it's still a pretty niche field. Yeah, अभी भी काफी niche है because 16,000 का figure काफी छोटा है. Just to put this figure in perspective, how many CAs do you think are there in India? India में कितने CA है? Any guess? As of right now, how many CAs are there in India? Wild guess. No idea. Okay, so Devansh is saying 50 lakh. Okay. That's one figure. Maybe somebody else wants to add on to that, or maybe not. 2 to 3 lakh. Okay. So Devansh has probably overestimated the capacity of people being able to finish CA. And I'm talking about people who have done the entire course. So they are practicing CAs basically. So the answer is basically very close to what Kanish has said. The figure is around, I think, 3.2 lakhs. So the number of CAs in India right now is 3.2 lakh, something about that. So as you can see, the number of actuaries from UK institute is about 20x lower than that. 16,000 ka figure is much smaller. I'm just putting that into perspective. So the thing is, this lower figure very much acts to your benefit, because if there's a lower figure, then there is lower competition in the field. If the figure of if the number of actuaries is lower, then basically the supply of actuaries is lower, and as a result, the price of an actuary in the market increases. So what I'm saying is that once you become an actuary, the market would be putting a very large premium on you, and you'll be able to demand a very high salary simply because there are not many actuaries around. So that's definitely a benefit. And one more thing to note here is that, well, out of 32,000 people, 16,000 have become fellows. So the conversion rate here is pretty decent, about 50%. 50% of the people, of the total members, are in fact fellows. The same is absolutely not true for the Indian Institute. This conversion rate definitely does not hold true for the Indian Institute. So these are the numbers for the Indian Institute. Again, some numbers तुमको focus नहीं करना है. We'll be looking at these two figures. So this is basically the student membership. These are around 9,000 people are still giving their papers from the Indian Institute, whereas the number of fellows, the number of people who have cleared all the papers, is less than 500. This is what basically Akash sir was alluding to earlier. So यहाँ पर फेलो का काउंट तो बहुत लो है, like 500 भी technically cross नहीं हुआ है, and worse than that, the conversion rate is pretty low if you see. So about 9,000 students and around 500 fellows, so around 5% of the people are fellows. So I think this ties into the earlier point of papers from II being tougher. याद होगा मैंने पहले बोला था कि II के पेपर थोड़े टफ होते हैं, थोड़े अनप्रेडिक्टेबल होते हैं, and I think you can see it in the results here, in the figures here. So yeah, those are the membership statistics. Any questions? पूछो कोई क्वेश्चन है तो. Okay, so I think I can give it over to Akash sir now. All right. So I think Akash sir can take it.
Yeah, great. So quickly coming to, let's say, the part where we as FinStart Academy come into play. So we have been now mentoring students in the actuarial domain since the past 7 years. Okay, we've trained more than 3,000 to 4,000 students. We have almost 13 toppers from the II exam. So II declares the person who gets the highest marks IFO does not. So 13 of them have got overall more than or the highest mark. Okay, around 60% of success for every 100 overall. 60% people are clearing the exams. Okay, so this is a quick factoid as such about Finstat Academy and the details that Finstat has to offer. Okay, Dhruv, we can go ahead with the next one. So in case you guys are interested in getting in touch with us, wanting to learn more about the profession, the contact details are put up here. Ashna, if you could put the brochure up also on the chat box, that will be great if anyone wants to download. So you can get in touch with us through any of the channels. Our contact details are there. If you want, you can just take a quick snip of the screen or a screenshot of it and you can keep in touch. Now, if there are any questions, we'll be more than happy to take any questions that you guys may have with regards to whatever, maybe application of the profession. Dhruv referred to the way you can clear exams. Anything that you have, feel free to ask. We'll be more than happy to answer and we'll end the session. Anyone has any questions?
Also, if you, let's say, come across a question later on, you can just message our counselor, maybe even ask her for my number or probably Akash's number if you want, and we'll be happy to clarify any doubts even after the seminar.
हाँ, वो तो होता ही है. So typically you go home and discuss with your parents, and your parents or your friend comes up with a question and तभी लगता है अरे ये पूछना रह गया. It's all right. You can just message up. We have one-to-one counselings as well. So Dhruv has given you quite a detailed understanding, but after that also, if you require a one-to-one counseling, a one-to-one understanding is how do you want to take, we'll be more than happy to take. What's the annual fees? Devansh, we don't charge a fee as such annually. We just charge a fee per exam. That fee is valid even for the next 4 attempts. So let's say Devansh, you decided to give CB1 right now, or CS1 or CM1, whatever. So let's say you are planning to give it in April. For some reason, you could not appear, you failed, anything that may happen, we cover up for the next 3 attempts as well. So we charge a per exam fee. There is no membership fee as such. As and when you give exams, you have to give the fees. And the fees varies from paper to paper. So CS1, CM1, every paper has a different fee.
If you want, you could tell them the fee for 1-2 papers to get a sense.
Yeah, so ideally the business papers are lesser. So around 13 to 14,000 is the business paper, CB1, CB2. CM2 and CM1 are the, CM1 and CS2 are the larger papers in terms of their portion. So they are around 30,000. CS1 is 20,000 and CM2 is 22. So broadly, if I have to give you a range, on an average, it will be around 20 to 25,000 per exam on an average.
I think the question is answered, right, Devansh?
Yeah. Anyone has any further questions can also put up.
All right.
Cool. Great. Yeah. So thanks, guys. Thanks for being such a patient audience, listening us through. I hope we have given you a fair idea about what actuaries as a career offers. What are the areas? How can you become one? What are the various things that you can pursue upon while you're doing it? I hope you'll be able to make a more informed decision about your career. Okay. Think carefully. Yes. After that also, as I stated earlier, if you have any doubts, feel free to reach out. Thanks for being such a patient audience.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.